mentioned at the beginning of the show, Dave, my passion for standing up for women, especially the most basic topic, which is women and girls in sports and these men and boys who are trying to take spots away and in many cases doing so successfully, especially in the lovely state of California, where 2 boys over the last week or so came in and won state titles, high jump, long jump, events that, let me tell you, there's a big difference in your jump distance in your times if you are a boy versus a girl. It is very simple. And here's the key. This has been going on for a long time, but because of what just happened over the last week, our commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, has said he is on the verge of handing out large-scale fines to the state of California. This is one of the news breaks here. A biological male competed in California girls' state finals, winning big. As Governor Gavin Newsom fully understands, large-scale fines will be imposed. So we don't know what those large-scale fines are, but if Newsom, and I tend to say by his name, Newsom, and others continue to fight this, like, do they not realize that Donald Trump is dead serious about this? Obviously, they don't care. They're going to keep pushing. How big should it be? How far, Dave, Russell, do you think he should go? Because I say all the way, just like with Columbia University, Harvard, like this is the only way to make these people bend. And in this case, we have to break them, not just bend, break them from what they're choosing to do to these young girls.
I totally agree. You have to go all the way. It's actually directly connected to what Russell was just talking about truth. And that if you don't start with truth, then everything will spin completely out of control. The idea at this point, after Trump is back again and the culture has shifted, that they're still going, they're still allowing the charade, that anyone is participating in this farce is completely insane. And, I don't want the government really coming in to dictate all of these things. That's the last position I would ever want the government to do. But at some point when things are so wildly out of control, when the systems have all broke down so that in California you have boys beating girls in all of these sports, which every time I see one of these videos, they still pop out. And at this point, my reaction now is more about the parents than about what's happening on the field or on the court or anything else. I'm like, how does a father subject his daughter to this? So if no one is going to do anything, and I can only imagine, a lot of people I see saying, oh, well, the girls just shouldn't participate.
No.
But why should we steal this away from the girls? Like, I get the inclination there, right? Like they shouldn't humiliate themselves or lose to a boy or whatever. I get the inclination. But then you're basically saying to a girl, all right, then don't participate in sports if a boy is there. And that's not fair either. So, I would say go all the way.
It has been really cool to see some of these young women step off the podium or take a knee, like the young woman who was fencing, I believe, and received some awards for doing that. But to your point, they have worked their whole lives.
Right.
This moment. Most kids in high school don't go on to play collegiate sports. This is the state championship your senior year. You've worked your whole life. This is your dream, and you're going to step aside and not even, I guess, try to compete against the boy. Where are the adults in the room? And they continue to choose to not be there, and that includes Gavin Newsom, the governor. So that is why Donald Trump has to get involved, because it should not even take this. But it breaks my heart. I mean, Russell, you agree, right? These girls shouldn't have to step aside.
Russell, you want your daughters being beaten by boys in wrestling or what?
My daughters, I think, can take on anybody in any gender, in any discipline, because those young girls are powerful, I'm telling you that. Once you start rejecting, they're certainly beating this man up on a pretty regular basis, so maybe they're ready, and they're only 6 and 8 years old. But what's interesting, I think, is that Gavin Newsom appeared to be, perhaps in a cynical attempt to curry favour, repositioning, in particular on this matter publicly, I believe, when he was speaking with Charlie Kirk. It doesn't surprise me that's not made its way all the way through to legislation. I was kind of most struck by the point made, I think, by Marco Rubio some time ago, where he said, why have separate categories at all then?
Right.
if there are no distinctions, you don't need the category of women's sports. I thought that was a pretty good argument. I do feel that if you're a person that identifies in a different way or wants to dress in a different way, that's I think individual freedom should afford that, and it's
Of course.
not something that I would seek to judge anybody on. But when it comes to the very particular matter of sports and combat sports, which are by their nature physical and physically determined, it seems that there ought be a consensus, perhaps derived by the participants in the sports themselves. And I think it's pretty clear the way that would go. It does seem peculiar and odd that this conversation keeps creeping on, and I sometimes wonder if in some ways both sides are getting something out of it, and that we have to be careful that what we're not enjoying is a kind of anger or sort of just enjoying the kind of enmity that it seems to evoke in people. But for me, I have a kind of, I've got to tell you, I love football, right, in the UK. And I know I used to like just read like online media, and I used to read a lot because I used to write for the Guardian newspaper. I used to write a column on football every week. And it was like, I'm not an expert in the game. I'm just a fan. This is actually a Sage's section. I'm just a fan. And I noticed when they started to collapse the men's football, or you would call it soccer, and the women's soccer into the same category, something about it bothered me. And not because I'm a father of daughters. I want my daughters to play sport and to excel at sport. But in our country, like your country, football's it's a part of the culture. And if you start to report on Arsenal beat Man United yesterday and you find out that you mean in the Women's League, it's just sort of a bit confusing why you put it there. It doesn't hurt to have it on a different page. Like, why is the culture pushing women's sports in the way that it is, as if the culture itself is where morality and sacredness takes place? If women want to play sports, do it. I've heard people talk about the Women's Basketball Association. It's like, they can't make it kind of work economically, and we're being forced to watch it and enjoy it. And so if people want to do it, it's okay, but it doesn't have to, the reason football in my country works, and presumably all major league sports in your country, is because they're working economically. People want to watch it and they want to pay for it. That's why male athletes are getting more money than female athletes, because the sport's generating more revenue. It's not gender inequality, it's economics.